I think I was born to shake things up.
Yeah.
I scare some people at competitions.
I feel like you're making history.
There's lots of people who could bring down the house.
This is really, really important that we get to write our future.
You're watching New England Public Media, WGBY Springfield.
Oh, wow, we should talk about that. Hi, I'm Derek Kennedy, and that's my co-host, Maya Schrader, and we are so excited to launch our new show and another thing that's coming soon to NEPM Radio 88.5 FM. And we can't wait to talk with you about what's going on in your backyard, what's important, the vaccine, schools reopening. You can find us on NEPM social media and visit us at nepm.org to see how you can be part of the conversation.
Coming up, stories we're connecting you with tonight. The words of James Baldwin inspire the work of artists of color in a new exhibit.
It's important for people in a mostly white town to see that there are people of color amongst them hiding in the cracks and to see their work.
Former State Senator Ben Downing on his gubernatorial run.
The most important thing is showing up, it's listening, and then showing concrete plans for how we will address the challenges facing families in their day-to-day lives.
And the town of Great Barrington works to make it easier to get from here to there.
You know, I don't think we thought about how dangerous it really was then, but times have changed, and there's definitely a lot more families that are utilizing that portion of Route 7, and it's obviously scary.
Details on those stories and more up next on Connecting Point.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us for Connecting Point. I'm 𝘊𝘂𝑚 Bauer. Famed civil rights activist and writer James Baldwin wrote in his essay, The Creative Process, that, quote, a society must assume that it is stable, but the artist must know, and he must let us know, that there is nothing stable under heaven. Using these words as a focal point, Northampton's Oxbow Gallery held an exhibition recently entitled Nothing Stable Under Heaven. It's a showcase of multidisciplinary artwork by Black artists from 4 states, and producer Dave Frazier visited the gallery recently to bring us this story.
An exhibit that showcases Black artists is a first for the Oxbow Gallery in Northampton. Nothing Stable Under Heaven is the title taken from an essay by James Baldwin, in which he claims the role of the artist in society is to reveal its inherent instability. Artist Mars Champagne works in multimedia, specializing in drawing, dance, mixed media, and photography.
And this piece I call Order in Disorder. And I relate that to my life, and maybe a lot of us can relate to that in our lives during this time of COVID, of having a lot of disorder, but still having, I'll call it like ourselves collected to the point of still functioning.
Andrew Moon Bain selected several pieces of work from his collection, all of which he says is an attempt at challenging cultural norms and redrafting racial authorities, while drawing references from dreams, current events, history, and honoring the earth and indigenous ancestries.
So I was pulling out a lot of older work and drawings and things that I hadn't thought about for years, and started to look at them again and kind of add little touches to them, so that was a lot of fun.
On a recent Saturday, the gallery hosted an open house to let the public meet the artists. People gathered outside, taking turns entering the space, trying to adhere to COVID restrictions. Inside, Emily Roman talked about her self-portrait that reflects the intersection of her childhood memories growing up in Puerto Rico and her dreams for the future.
I create mostly for myself and my people. And by saying my people, Boricuas. And I want my people to connect with it. I want them to look at it and go, oh my God, that gives me vibes of Loíza, or that gives me, I want to go to the beach, or I want to go straight to San Juan, get me on a plane. I want that feeling from them.
In the center of the gallery sits 2 pieces by John Hughes. Hughes has studied music, song, and dance of West Africa for almost 30 years. He admits he is uncomfortable labeling his work as Black art.
I guess I'm of 2 minds about the show. One is it's important to create the opportunity for people of color who have, generally speaking, been disenfranchised to have a forum. And it's important for people in a mostly white town to see that there are people of color amongst them hiding in the cracks and to see their work.
The age range of the artists involved span 8 decades. Artist Bobby Brown is a retired kindergarten teacher from Cambridge.
And observing the kids, the young 5- and 6-year-olds, they don't have a plan. They just mess around with stuff, and then sometimes they see something they like. And so I thought, well, I can do that.
One artist not present was Beatrice Mitchell, whose poem entitled Rote Learning was accompanied by images created by Greenfield artist Gloria Matlock.
I basically put the pictures with the poems, but I wanted to do it in a way that there was some color to it. I love colors, and I just wanted it so people could look at the picture and be attracted to the pictures, and then, with the poem, along with the poem.
The exhibit runs through April 25th at the Oxbow Gallery in Northampton.
Living in a place like this, I feel like there's a lot of European representation of artwork, and to have such gifted artists here being represented is a real source of change, to show artists that they can make it, that Black artists can create, and that it is a viable source of living and being to be an artist.
Every Friday night, Connecting Point explores the people, places, and ideas that matter most to Western New England. But it doesn't stop there. You can find us online anytime for exclusive features and content. In our digital extra this week, we hear from 2 business owners on Main Street in West Springfield about where they came from, where they are, and where they're going as they pursue the fabled American dream.
We didn't met each other back home. Like Iraqi, Syrian, Egyptian, we never met each other there, When we came here, we met each other. We became a family. We became our own nation and a big nation.
Don't miss this digital exclusive available online right now at nepm.org/connectingpoint. The 2022 Massachusetts gubernatorial election may be a year and a half away, but already the first candidate has thrown his hat into the ring, and it's a name that may be familiar to the residents of the region. Former State Senator Ben Downing, who grew up in Pittsfield and represented the Berkshire, Hampshire, Franklin, and Hampden district from 2007 to 2017, announced his candidacy for governor in February. Connecting Point's Ray Herschel recently spoke with Downing, who now lives in East Boston and works for a renewable energy company, to find out why he wants to get back in the political arena and run for the state's highest elective office.
I'm running for governor to build a fairer, stronger Massachusetts. I've seen the difference that state leadership makes. I've lived it. Growing up in Pittsfield, going through a time of economic transition, seeing what happens when the state doesn't step in to help our gateway cities, or now raising a family here in East Boston where, on the one hand, my neighbors are told they are essential workers, and then they come home and have to fight evictions here in their community, in their neighborhood. I'm running because I believe the potential of Massachusetts is limitless, and that we can solve the big problems and the big challenges that are facing us on climate change, on economic fairness, on racial justice and equity. But we need urgency from our leadership, starting with the governor. That's why I'm running.
You, as part of your campaign, have unveiled an ambitious clean energy program. As I recall, you want Massachusetts to go 100% clean electricity by the end of 2030 and clean energy by the end of 2040. How would this look in terms of the Bay State? Are we talking about, for example, all electric buses and public transportation, all state buildings being powered by solar energy, that kind of thing?
So yes, first and foremost, it will be transitioning existing electricity use to 100% clean electricity by leveraging the incredible resource off our coasts in offshore wind, and then continuing to deploy solar and battery storage here locally, wherever and whenever we can. and then transitioning all other sectors, buildings and transportation, away from gas and gasoline and oil, transitioning all of those others away by 2040. I think we have the ability to do that. What we're seeing is that there are 12 to 15 other states, depending on how it is accounted for, that have a 100% clean energy or clean electricity goal in place today, either in legislation or in executive orders. Massachusetts doesn't have that. We could get to 2050 and still have fossil fuels operating in Massachusetts. That's not in line with the science that climate is requiring us to respond to. So I am 100% confident that we can do this. It will require urgency. It requires ambitious leadership. But what I've seen over the last 4 years in the private sector is that the states that are taking these steps are also the states that are getting investment from private companies, and that there is the ability to do this.
Senator Downing, what would the transition to clean energy then cost in terms of Massachusetts taxpayers? Have you put a price tag on this initiative? Governor Baker has said he doesn't want a broad-based tax increase. Are you saying that you would be in favor of some kind of tax increase to help fund this clean energy initiative?
So the majority of it we can fund through existing programs, right? But I think it's important to remember that first, our status quo has a significant cost. We pay those costs in increased asthma rates and higher chronic disease rates because of our use of fossil fuels. And we see that in mass health, Medicaid, business and family health care budgets. So we pay a cost right now. The status quo is not sustainable and it is not static. And if we make these investments in clean energy, in energy efficiency, that we have the ability to reap significant benefits, both in terms of jobs and economic opportunity, but also in terms of reduced costs in healthcare, reduced costs in our electricity bills.
What other priorities are on the Downing priority list at this point that you're going to be unveiling as this campaign moves forward?
So we will be rolling out somewhere on the order of another dozen of these policy action plans. Contained in them will be a plan to tackle poverty in Massachusetts, one to ensure economic security for working families, comprehensive tax reform, a plan around jobs, housing, infrastructure, and transportation. So there will be a comprehensive strategy for how we build a fairer, stronger Massachusetts.
Senator, when you were running for a state senator in the Berkshires, you were very successful. That was a state Senate seat that you ran for. Not different ballgame now. You're running for the state's top elective office, the governorship, where you've got to get your name recognition out across the Commonwealth. How do you intend to do that, and how much do you think this campaign for governor is going to cost you? You're going to be able to raise the money to be successful?
First, that's why I'm in this race early, to get in there and be able to meet with voters, to have conversations, so that come next year, when folks are going to their polling places or casting their early ballots, that they will have seen me not one time, but 2, 3, 4, 5 times in their community. When it comes to the resources, we're going to hold ourselves to a higher standard. I'm not taking donations from lobbyists, not taking donations from PACs. I'm excited that in the first quarter, we were able to raise $227,000, more importantly from 1,100 individual contributors. And we're going to continue to build that small dollar fundraising base to build the foundation for an independent progressive campaign to build a fairer, stronger Massachusetts.
Now, as we speak, you are the only announced candidate for governor in Massachusetts in the 2022 race. Do you expect Governor Baker to be a candidate again? And if so, how do you feel about running against one of the more popular governors ever elected in Massachusetts?
You know, I think Governor Baker is a good man and a dedicated public servant. He's someone who I disagree with on the issues, and we have strong disagreements. And I'm excited about going out there and having that debate, both about our values and earning voters' trust over the course of the campaign. And I think the important thing is to have a debate about the record the governor has compiled over the last 6 years. He has had all the political capital in the world, and yet he hasn't spent it on our behalf. He has been fine to manage the status quo, but that status quo is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for folks in Pittsfield or in Springfield or East Boston or many other communities, right? that status quo is one of growing inequality, growing wage and wealth gaps, growing racial inequities, and we haven't had the urgent type of leadership we need to start to close those gaps and build a fairer, stronger Massachusetts.
In the city, sidewalks are a necessity to get from one place to another by foot and are so prevalent they're often taken for granted. In rural areas of the state, though, they are not quite as abundant, but sometimes just as necessary. The town of Great Barrington looks to remedy their own connectivity situation with walkways and sidewalks that will better link their community together. And Connecting Point's Brian Sullivan traveled to the southern Berkshire town to get a look at two of their latest projects.
In a city landscape, sidewalks can become so commonplace as to be nothing more than an afterthought. In Springfield, I can walk from my apartment for countless blocks, and the only time my feet touch the roadway is at the crosswalk, of which there is a surplus, what with all the stoplights in town. Rural areas tend to have a different story to tell. Here in Springfield, pedestrians can actually see a major highway elevated above them in certain spots. In Great Barrington, their major highway is right there at ground level and runs straight into Connecticut. Kids who grew up here riding their bikes down this stretch of Route 7 now, as adults, see it as a daunting task for anyone who attempts it. The solution? A greenway project that cuts off a large section of this road and gets pedestrians just a little closer to the beauty that surrounds them.
You know, I don't think we thought about how dangerous it really was then, but times have changed, and there's definitely a lot more families that are utilizing that portion of Route 7, and you know, it's obviously scary and it's a concern. There's been some accidents on this portion of road, so it's a real great thing for the community to get this built and to make it safer and to increase the sort of ability for people to utilize the open space the town has to offer.
The money for this roughly $500,000 project came through a shared streets grant from Mass DOT and the town and will help create a link between the community center and community health once it gets paved. We got there before the paving started to take in some of the sites. However, paving operations were getting underway on Main Street in Housatonic Village, just a few miles up the road. While not really a prototypical Main Street in terms of storefronts and commerce, it does carry plenty of vehicular volume since it connects with Route 41, one of the major roadways here in the southern Berkshires.
This is a sidewalk people have been asking about for about a decade. We were finally able to receive a Complete Streets grant a year ago. So this is a $230,000 project to extend the sidewalk on Main Street in Housatonic.
The new sidewalk not only gives locals a safer way of getting to places like the library and the community center, but it also provides easier access to some nature spots here in town, like Old Maids Park just up the road and this rail trail that I'm on right now. So far, though, the construction and work crews have made an already narrow road even more so, forcing drivers to take things much slower. But for one of the only storefronts on the street, giving passing eyes more time to stop and look may actually be good for business. In fact, the new sidewalk will make the street permanently thinner by design to make it safer for pedestrians and hopefully deter drivers from treating the road like the local speedway.
The area road has been utilized a lot by people walking with their families, by walking their dogs, and it's very narrow and very dangerous. It's also, there's a blind corner there. So this section of sidewalk is going to increase pedestrian safety. We're also installing some extra signage and doing some traffic calming measures to slow cars down.
Each of these relatively cost-effective projects is now being viewed as the first step in creating what the town hopes will be a more pedestrian-friendly rural community.
Our overall vision is to have our neighborhoods and our community centers and our big employers all linked with sidewalks, with trails, with a complete streets network, so people can get around safely and easily if they don't want to travel in a car, or if they travel by bike or by bus, that people can get around to where they need to go.
Every April since 1987, the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence has sponsored Alcohol Awareness Month to increase the understanding of causes and treatment for alcohol addiction, as well as to reduce the stigma associated with it. Local communities are encouraged to participate and bring awareness to this issue, as well as offer resources. I spoke with Dino Bettinelli, Executive Director at Compass Recovery in Feeding Hills, and Antonia Santiago, Clinical Director, to learn more about this disease and what their organization is doing to help.
Addiction in general is, a killer. I mean, the reason it's important to shed light on the disease of addiction is because many people don't actually recognize that it is a disease. And like any disease, it's chronic, it's progressive, and it's fatal. And so it's very important for people to understand that. I mean, that's the biggest stigma with addiction, right? Is if I said to you, oh, I have cancer, people don't expect you to just get better. They expect that the only way you're going to get better is if you have treatment. But if someone struggles with alcohol or addiction, it's like, why can't you just stop? Alcohol is so socially accepted. It's a legal drug. It's socially accepted. And what the normal definition of problem is to the reality of what a problem is it's really a big gap. The CDC, they say that if for a woman, if she drinks more than 4 drinks in one sitting or 8 drinks in 1 week, that she has a substance use problem. For a man, if he drinks more than 5 drinks in one sitting or 15 in 1 week, he has a substance use issue. And so it's really important to shed this light on alcoholism because most people would be shocked to find out how little you actually have to be drinking to have a problem.
Absolutely. And I think that the point you brought up about, alcohol being a socially acceptable drug, and it's such a big part of our culture. With that, is there still a stigma around admitting that you have a problem as there once was?
There's always stigmas about admitting somebody has a problem with anything is not just like the stigma. It's just a hard thing to do. It kind of goes against a lot of people's nature.
Especially like you mentioned, it's so embedded in our culture. So when COVID happened in quarantine, what's the first thing people were talking about? Oh, I'm going to have a drink at 9 or at 12 because there's nothing else to do. But that's, it's because it's so embedded and it's like, oh, it's okay. But really, there's so many issues and risk and dangers with drinking in that way.
Well, and that brings me to my next point, because at the start of this pandemic, many businesses were forced to temporarily shut down. However, liquor stores fell under that essential category and they were able to remain open. Why was this the case? And did you see an increase in alcohol addiction or even relapse during the pandemic?
All substance use went up during the pandemic. Right. And I think it kind of says a lot about our culture that liquor stores are essential workers. Substance use thrives in a lack of connection. What I mean by that is substance use, substance addiction takes people and it isolates them until eventually all that people have left is their substance. The pandemic separated us. So anybody during that time who already maybe was on the fringes of having a substance use problem, now they're even more isolated. So now they're really going to turn to substance use. I think that's one of the biggest things. We are social creatures, and alcohol especially, but other substances too, became, people's go-to. It became the only thing they had to cope through those times.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And like you said, the pandemic has been difficult for everyone. And so people who are struggling, it can be even more trying. What are some of the triggers that can arise during these moments, and how can they help manage them?
So, the triggers for substance use in general a lot of them are dependent on the individual. People, places, things. That's what you always hear, right? People, places, and things. I think the pandemic took away the positive people, places, and things. So the isolation from the positive left people with that negative.
Yeah, and with the pandemic, you weren't able to use any other coping skills. You weren't able to go out. Domestic violence also went up during the pandemic. So all of that is correlated. So if you're not able to go out and, take a break or escape or do some exercise outside or even go to the gym because they were closed too, now you're going to fall back onto those maladaptive coping skills like drinking because it's right there and they were open.
Now, one statistic that I saw that I'm sure probably has changed after the pandemic is that according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, alcohol is the 3rd leading cause of preventable death in the United States, and about 95,000 Americans die from alcohol-related causes each year. How early do you think alcohol awareness education should begin?
Parents should educate their children in the homes at an extremely young age. I think that it should be part of society. I think every 13-year-old and above should know the reality of alcohol, not the scare tactics of alcohol, but the reality that, hey, this is a substance that, we as a society have deemed legal. This is a substance that we as a society, really partake in and socially accept. But this is a substance that is extremely dangerous. I mean, if not used properly, it's going to ruin your life. I mean, of all the substances, actually, once you become physically dependent on alcohol, that's the worst of all of them to be physically dependent on. I mean, the detoxes from alcohol can kill an individual. So it's like literally the worst. What really needs to be educated, though, is what does substance abuse really look like? Like, okay, hey, when you start having consequences financially, emotionally, with your relationships, that's a sign you might have a substance use issue, right? When you start having consequences in these things as a result of your using, and you still keep using, that's a definite sign you have an issue.
Now, what resources are available for someone who is struggling with this substance abuse, especially those who don't have the means to afford costly recovery programs?
Yeah, so 12-step programs are an amazing resource. And now with the pandemic, they're even available online. I mean, they were available online before, but now even more accessible. Connection. So we always say that, the opposite of addiction is connection. So that 12-step program is going to give you that, but also talking to other folks who are in the same position as you, who can relate to you and you can relate to them. And you can talk about some of the stuff that's going on and cope in a more healthy way.
They honestly, because nothing works better than being somewhere where everybody there understands you.
That does it for Connecting Point for April 23rd, 2021. Remember, you can always find the stories that you saw tonight, as well as exclusive features, digital-only content, and more online anytime at nepm.org/connectingpoint. And please join us again next Friday night at 6 right here on New England Public Media for more stories of the people, places, and ideas that matter most to Western New England. I'm 𝘧𝘊𝘲 𝘊𝘀𝘀. Be safe and have a good night.
Support for Connecting Point is provided by our contributing viewers.
In an intimate profile of her life, meet the groundbreaking author Amy Tan.
What would I lose if I lost my mother?
Daughters who have to deal with mothers from China.
Fiction wasn't about you.
Don't miss Amy Tan.
But it was about you.